What's up, everybody? It's the homie Truth Teller, the Street Reporter, and today's gonna be a good topic. A lot of people been asking me about this. Remember, I always tell you, I'm always asked about Chief Keef for some strange reason. I guess they know I'm a street reporter, and I've been documenting the culture for a while, kind of like a drill historian. In my mind, I feel like this time period is gonna be a big time period that a lot of people gonna look back on. Because in my opinion, I ain't really seen that many young people so aggressive, killing each other, and the music playing a part in it. Not much that part, because there's been the killing going on now. You get what I'm saying? But I'm not going to lie. I do feel like the music might fuel it a little bit. But today we're going to talk about a person who I believe was murdered before the drill culture really popped off. A lot of people ask me about this name because they hear Lil Steve in a lot of songs. They hear Lil Steve by a lot of people. People be merchanting on his name. Merchant mean if you say something and then put somebody's name behind it, then it's true. So say for instance, someone owe you some money, and then they be like merchant, and you say, man, on Steve, I got you, then that mean I guess it's real. So you hear that a lot, and then you hear a lot of Steve Drive. That's in a lot of music from like the BDs. They kind of blew up big when the drill culture kind of popped off with like Chief Keef. You hear Chief Keef screaming out Steve Drive. You hear people from like E-Day, 600 Breezy, LA Capone, and a lot of other artists who kind of popped off. So we're going to take Steve to the board today and kind of explain some background, what happened to him, and kind of give you my conclusion. Now, the conclusion is weird because, to be honest with you, Steve died at a very young age. So a lot of things that happened to him wasn't really documented. So a lot of stuff we had to rely off, like police paperwork. We had to rely off sources who I talked to, the police scanners, police reports. And then actually what ended up happening was a lot of scrap. Is the person who a lot of people is claiming had something to do with little Steve death. I couldn't really see that in any paperwork because he was young. Seemed like it was concealed. But in the future, his friends and people close to him started coming out and saying things about him and little Steve. But we're going to get back to that later. Kind of give you some background. Today we're going to talk about little Steve. You might know him as Steve Drive because you hear that name a lot, okay? When I first heard this, I figured this was like a young man who ended up losing his life to violence, but I didn't know he was that young. You know, he was very, very, very extremely young. I believe this guy ended up losing his life at 15 years old. So that was another thing that kind of alarmed me. But first, we're going to talk about Steve. I noticed that he was from an area, that was known as Steve Drive before that, but it's really King Drive. Over there, it's a lot of black disciples. That neighborhood kind of became famous when rappers like Chief Keef and Lil Durk started blowing up and shit like that. I noticed that a lot of people kind of merged that Steve was a real demon. He was really like that. Now, I'm not saying that's a good thing, okay? But I'm just telling you what I hear in the streets and the rumors is that he had a reputation. I know that's crazy because he was very young, but he had a reputation. His brother is actually Memo 600. And we know Memo 600 is involved in a lot of beefs, a lot of op shit. So I instantly realized that Lil Steve had a lot of ops, okay? That was another thing. I didn't really see rap songs and shit like him, so I didn't really have that much to rely on. All I really had was shit that I read in the newspapers, a few police reports, and, interviewing people, because I have interviewed a lot of people from 600. I had a chance to interview 600 Breezy from Tay 600. I actually interviewed E-Day and asked him something about Chief Keef, and he told me this right here. As you can see, the 600 started blowing up early, and they were linked to a lot of top rappers and shit like that. But what the police is alleging, that kind of threw me off. I'm not going to lie, because these guys who be in the drill culture be very young. So I hear a lot of heinous stories about how they end up losing their life. I believe this guy lost his life in, I want to say, was it 2011, I believe. I believe 2011. I don't want to get the days mixed up, so that might be mixed up a little bit, but I do think I'm on point with that. I believe he ended up losing his life in 2011. The police is claiming that he was walking down the block of 60th and Prairie, I believe. 60th and South Prairie, I believe, okay? He was walking down that block, hope I spelled that right, and a guy on the bike rolled up to him and said, hey, bro. Guy on the bike rolled up and said, hey, bro, it's some dudes down the block with some guns and shit, bro. You better be careful. Don't go down there. Now, that's according to the paperwork. A guy on the bike, now I don't know if he was young or not. I'm figuring he was young because the name was concealed. So, someone on the bike rolled up to Lil Steve and said, hey, bro, it's somebody on the bike and it's niggas down there with some guns and shit. Be careful. Soon he said that, some guys popped out and got to shooting. Blah, 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 blah. Got to firing up the whole area. Next thing you know, Lil Steve get hit. He ended up getting killed, okay? Now, when he lost his life, I noticed he was only 15 years old. I said, damn, that's crazy. I wasn't that shocked because you got to understand I'm from Chicago, so 15 is like 21. These young people out here be having that scratch on their chest. So I noticed that the young man ended up losing his life getting hit like that. It was rumors on the street that he was killed by another young person who was 14 years old. Now, that's what threw me on because I couldn't find anything to verify this, so I had to just rely off the background and a little bit of what happened, but it still didn't really point me to the people who did it. Now, let's fast forward some years. A guy by the name of, no, we ain't gonna fast forward no years, we're gonna bring it back now. We're gonna bring it back a little bit. Rumors on the street got to circulating that a guy by the name of MOB Scrap was the person who killed Steve, okay? Now, I didn't want to put that on the board because I don't want to put rumors and shit like that on the board. I didn't know if that was going to be honest, so I didn't want to do that. But what made me do this was, years later, Mob Scrap ended up losing his life. He ended up getting killed, okay? He ended up getting killed. Once he died, members of this MOB set, which is like GDs, and I'm pretty sure there's other gangs in that because nowadays the gangs are more crew-orientated, more block-orientated. But I noticed a lot of these guys start crediting Mob Scrap with the death of this guy right here, Steve. A lot of people got to saying that he killed Steve. Then a lot of people got to saying that, he got caught. So I did see in the paperwork that a 14-year-old was caught for the murder. So they started linking that 14-year-old to this guy right here named Mob Scrap, okay? It got to the point where Mob Scrap, close friend, a lot of people say they were cousins, and they might be cousins. Now, y'all gonna say, how the fuck he a street reporter? He don't know if they cousins. A lot of people say that cousin shit. If I can't verify it, I can't verify it. But a person supposed to be his cousin by the name of FBG Duck, he went on live, okay, and said that a lot of 600 members testified against Mob Scrap in Lil Steve case. I was told that the person who testified against Mob Scrap is family members and people that we all know. I'm not going to put that on there because I couldn't see that in the paperwork. What I did see was that someone was charged that claiming it's Mob Scrap. A cousin of his said it was him, and then a lot of his fellow members said it was him. Scrap ended up beating that murder case. I was told a lot of people took the stand against this guy. He ended up beating that murder case, okay? So I started hearing rumors that a lot of people was telling on him and they were claiming 600 was telling on this guy and this guy did shit to that. So I didn't really see what anyone needed a breakdown from. This guy is accused and he went to court for killing this guy. Now, he said he didn't have anything to do with it, okay? So you got to be innocent now. We ain't going to play the politics and just accuse anyone of anything. But I'm not going to lie. When I look at this, I noticed that both of these neighborhoods are kind of like in the Washington Park area, And I just felt like maybe the reason Lil Steve lost his life was because of me personally, I think it was a internal gang conflict. That's what I believe he ended up losing his life to. I believe it was an internal gang conflict. And to break it down to layman terms, I think he died over gang banging. And it's kind of crazy because they're young, so you don't really want to look at it like that. But, it's shit going on that south side of Chicago. It's a lot of aggressiveness, a lot of anger. I'm not really sure. A lot of the young people are disrespecting other young people. It's like it's something different going on out there. And then as time has passed, it's been a lot of beefs between MOB and 600 since this guy death. It's been a lot of deaths and shit like that between both of these crews. So I ain't gonna say that, you know, he died because of anything else, but, you know, he went to trial, he went to court. I guess he beat his case, so I guess he is innocent, you know, but I believe Lil Steve died over internal gang conflict. I believe there was gang banging in those neighborhoods. I think his name was famous. I think everybody knew how he looked. I think he was young. If you ask me, when you're that young and you gang banging, somebody in the community taking advantage of you, if you really ask me. But that's just my opinion. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Remember, I don't need no donations from you. Keep your donations. You know, you can do something better with it than trying to send me some. But if you want to support me, this is what you can do. You can hit the like button like you always say you want to do. You always be saying shit like, man, hey, True, send your cash out so we can support you and shit like that. Well, if you want to support me, then what you can do, you can pull your little crusty finger on up in the air. Make sure you hit the like button, because when you do that, it make my videos grow and we both can grow together. I appreciate the love. It's the homie True.